Hello everyone, welcome to Lost in the Stacks. I apologize for the poor lighting. We are officially in our new house and I'm still trying to figure things out, and also it is pretty gloomy today. So it's kind of iffy. Hopefully things will get better as I am recording and practicing this. Let's take a moment to appreciate the shirt. I love this shirt. It makes me very happy. I'm still trying to wake up. I just woke up. Haven't even had breakfast yet, but I was like, I gotta record this video, so we're gonna get into it. But I'm very, very, very excited. We're gonna be talking about my September and October reads. This is gonna be probably a kind of a long video. But yeah, let's get into it. Most of the books that I read in September and October were very dark academia, spooky season vibe books, and I'm still kind of in that zone. My TBR is over here if you want to zoom in on them. For November, and I'm just trying, especially since I'm doing NaNoWriMo this month and I'm writing a vampire novel, and just the gothic creepy vibes are flowing and I love it. Anyways, in September, I actually read a lot of science fiction in September, which is interesting. I read Our Hideous Progeny. So this is by C.E. McGill. This is based off of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it is about Frankenstein's great niece, and she finds his journals. Her and her husband are scientists. They're down on their luck, and she's like, hey, could we replicate his experiments? And there's this one guy that is constantly just like being annoying and trying to steal other people's ideas. That's how he gets his money and his prestige, is by stealing other people's ideas. And he comes along and causes problems, and it's very depressing, kind of. The ending, I really like the ending, but like it was just really sad the entire time because she's just trying to live life, but in the Victorian era, like women had to depend on men for everything. And so you're seeing a lot of her struggles with that and wanting to be more independent. Like, she doesn't dislike being married, but it's not great, and her husband's not great, and it's really sad. Um, but it was really interesting. If you are not the kind of person who wants to read kind of more scientific kind of books, this is not for you. But if you are like me and you love books that are more leaning towards like sciencey, medical kind of body horror kind of things, you will like this. And it is very like slow, dark academia vibes, and I love it. Yeah. So that was a really good book. Secondly, I finally read Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. I read Dune a couple years ago. It's, I wouldn't say one of my favorite books, but I definitely really enjoyed it. I forgot though how weird Frank Herbert's writing style is. It's just weird to me, and like I know it inspired like what Star Wars, which is one of my favorite franchises, but like it's just kind of weird, man. Um, yeah, it's hard to follow and it's a little odd, but it's it takes 12 years after the events of Dune, and it follows a conspiracy to take down Paul Atreides as emperor. And if you've watched the movies, if you've at least watched the movies, if you haven't read the book, you know that Princess Alia, not Alia, I can't remember her name. The princess, she marries Paul to stop galactic war. And this is set after the jihad that Paul does around the galaxy, taking over and shifting power and all of this. And they're just like, I want to get rid of him. And it's just very interesting. My favorite POV was Alia's, which this is her actual one. Alia is Paul's sister, which we meet at the very end of the movies, which I didn't really like how, what's his face? Bienvenue did that because he messed up the timeline, and I don't like that, and I'm worried that we're not going to get her POV as much in Dune Messiah when he does that movie. But yeah, it was really interesting. I love like philosophical sci-fi, and Dune is very much that. So it's just very interesting. Now I have a sci-fi DNF in here. I don't like DNFing books. I especially don't like DNFing books if they are a popular book, because I want to understand why people like it, and I understand why people like this, but it's Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir. I DNF'd at 50%. That's my rule. I try and get to 50% in a book before I DNF it, because sometimes around 50% the book picks up and it's actually pretty good. But yeah, the world building is just non-existent, and that was the thing that really got me, was that the world building is non-existent. You're just kind of thrown in, and there's no real explanation about what is happening, and that upset me, because like I'm the kind of person who I need to know what, at least generally, what the world is in order to put myself in the story and understand what's going on and understand the characters. Was not able to do that with this, and so I was very much unable to connect with the book, even though the storyline is really interesting. I like the characters, but if there had been world building, I probably would have adored this and read the whole series by now. But the world building was non-existent. So, but I do understand why this book and this series is so popular. And I know that's kind of a me thing to like really want that world building. So, but yeah, that's the end of my sci-fi. Let's get into fantasy. So I have been really into reading vampire novels right now, because I am writing a vampire like novel at the moment for NaNoWriMo, and also like that I've been getting into that this fall, and that's part of the reason I am writing a vampire novel, is because I was just like, these vibes are just immaculate and I need to write my own story. So the first, well, I read Lucy Undying earlier this year and I want to reread it, but I read The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. This book, listen, I need to own this book. It needs to go on my trophy shelf, because oh, okay, I love like a good, very sad, very dark, very depressing book, if I'm in the right mood for it. I love Red Queen. Victoria Aveyard really goes into that, and it makes me happy. I don't know why. And this was one of those books. So it's about this vampire. She was changed against her will, and she has always hated being a vampire. She feeds only when she absolutely has to. And we mainly see her in like, I think it's like the 90s or the 80s. It's not modern day, it's like somewhere in the past a little bit. Where she is running a school for children, and it's like she has this like perfect life for her, and she really likes it, and she feels contented, and things start to go wrong, and while things are going wrong, she's reminiscing on past events and how she came to become a vampire, those early days, and like you see her life leading up to where she is now. And she has to like battle all these different like insecurities and things, and like she never accepted who she was as a vampire, and so she has to get to the point where she can do that. But yeah, if you like vampire books without the romance, this is like perfect, because there's like a little bit like, there's like a subplot of romance in like one of her flashbacks, and it was very sweet and I really liked it. But for the most part, there's no romance. It is very much like what it's like to be a vampire throughout the years, and I really liked it. It was a very good vibe, and it was very beautiful. Very sad. I cried. Yeah. But yeah, I really liked it a lot, and it made me want to read more vampire novels, especially like this one. So as I do every fall, I once again listen to The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien because I can't help myself. Um, I like listening to Andy Serkis's renditions of The Hobbit because I just love how he does all the different voices, and like you're like listening to it and then all of a sudden Gollum comes up and like it's just perfect. And like he tries and makes the characters' voices sound a lot like the actors' voices in the movies, which I think is really cool and I really like. So yeah, it's just very autumn coded and it's just very cozy and I liked it. It did remind me about how awful the movies are. Because it felt like they just took the storyline and then added a bunch of content because they wanted to make 3 movies, and that makes me upset. It made me really upset, and now I'm thinking about it again and I'm upset again. Because I love Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson kind of failed on that. I love the Lord of the Rings movies, but he kind of failed with The Hobbit. And I'm interested to see what he does with these new movies that are coming out. I'm very excited that Sir Ian McKellen is going to be back in these. Yes. And Andy Serkis. Like, these guys, they're going to make it amazing. And I'm very excited. But yeah, definitely, if you're looking for a cozy read and you just want to listen to something, The Hobbit. Listen to Andy Serkis. I know for me it's on Hoopla. I also technically own it on Audible, I think. So I have very little notes on this next book, which scares me a little because I think I remember everything that happened, but I don't know if I remember everything that happened. It's A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is her newest book that she has released. She is also re-releasing Sword Heart next year, and I think she's releasing another book like in the next year or two. She's one of my favorite authors. She's one of my top 5 authors. I love her. I love her writing. Especially, it's just good. So this one was a retelling of Goose Girl, which I've never read. Probably should. Basically it is about this girl who, her mother is a sorceress, and she doesn't realize her mom's a sorceress. She just knows her mom is evil and will do this thing where she like kind of mind controls her and forces her to do what she wants her to do and act a certain way, and is really awful. Like I know a lot of people, like, they struggle with having like narcissistic parents. Think about that, but your narcissistic parent can make you, force you to do exactly what they want you to do. Like, it's just awful. And but I love Cordelia. She's our main girl, and she's just super sweet, and she's super innocent and naive at the beginning, and you watch her like learn about things, and like honestly, like T. Kingfisher did a really good job with explaining kind of the trauma that can happen when you have a parent that's like that and you don't realize it, and then you start seeing how other people live and you're just like, wait, this is not normal? Other people's parents are not like this? And it's really, really sad. But like, Cordelia is amazing. I love the ending. I don't remember what the ending was. I do sort of remember, but I don't remember fully. But it says that I loved it. And I remember loving it because the vibes were immaculate in this book, just like every other T. Kingfisher fairy tale. So if you like her books and you like fairy tales, or if you just like fairy tales, great book. The final book that I read for September, honestly, I didn't realize I had read so many books. I thought I had read like less than this, but the final book that I read is The Spirit Bears His Teeth by Andrew White. Now, I rarely come across books where I just say these are perfect. Like, the writing is perfect, the story is perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. And this was one of their books. This is one of the books that, like, everything is perfect, everything is immaculate, the vibes are amazing. Like, it was amazing, and I loved it. And like, that's how I feel about Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews as well. Like, it's just perfect, it's immaculate. By the way, that came out last month, and if you have not gotten it, you should get it because it's amazing. Anyways, A Spirit Bears His Teeth is set in Victorian era. And this was one of the books I have been reading in my quest to read more queer literature and like kind of understand a lot more of where the queer community comes from, the things that they experience, and just trying to understand them a little better. And this one, our main character is biologically female, but she's never felt like she fits in with being female, and so they want to be a male, but like that's not really possible in the Victorian era. And as people find out about stuff like that, it doesn't go very well. She also is a part of this like group of like magic users that like speak to the dead and stuff, like necromancers, and she has the power to be able to do all of that. But that doesn't really work well because women aren't allowed to do that, which is part of the driving force behind the wanting to be a man, is wanting to be able to use their power. So yeah, they get shipped off to this place where she's gonna be fixed and made to be like a proper woman. And there's torture, there's murder, there's insanity. It's really, really, really sad. It is very dark and gruesome. It is very beautiful as well. I really love to see the growth in our main character throughout it. It's just really beautiful. And they're also autistic, which the way that the author writes autistic traits is very, very relatable to me. As someone who's autistic, I understood the vibes and the struggles, and part of the reason they're put in this insane asylum is because they're autistic, and that is a real thing that happened in the Victorian era, and it just makes me very sad. And yeah, it was very beautiful. I remember the ending being, yes, it was a happy ending. There was a happy ending. But yeah, if you're looking for just something like that, those dark and creepy vibes and immaculate writing, yeah, I really enjoyed it. But let's get into our October reads because we got a lot to cover. So we have one book that does not fit the spooky season dark academia vibes of the entirety of November, and it was kind of weird to read it because it just felt so out of place, but we have to talk about it because it is Ava Reid's new book, Fable for the End of the World. It comes out on March 4th, 2025. I was very excited to get this because I do somewhat like Ava Reid. She's not one of my favorite authors, but I think she's pretty good. So at our new house, we may not have cars driving in front, getting in the way of my video, but we have dogs that bark in the neighbor's yard for some reason. And so if you heard that, I apologize. But Ava Reid, she's really good. But there's always just been something lacking in her writing for me. Yeah, she found it in this book. She really needs to write more dystopian novels because this is her niche. It was just very engaging world, very engaging characters. It is the best book that I've read by her so far. And I cannot wait for people to actually get their hands on this and read it because it was very well done. You can definitely see the Hunger Games vibes. And she does say that this started out as a Hunger Games fanfic, and you can see it. But I really enjoyed it, and I like that because it felt familiar and it felt comfortable because it's a world that I'm already used to. My one complaint, and this is gonna upset some people, my one complaint was the romance. Now it is a lesbian romance, which is fine, but the way it started out was very forced. I felt like the rest of the romance was fine, like it went really well, but like leading up to them actually like getting together, it just felt very forced. It was very much like not based on a deeper connection. It was based on lust, and I don't like that in books. It doesn't matter if it's heterosexual, homosexual, whatever kind of romance is in it. I don't like when it's based on lust. I want to see the characters have a deeper connection that's not just based on physical appearance. And that's just a personal thing. But yeah, it felt like it was just based on trauma bonding and physical attraction, and that was it. And they got the deeper connection later on in the book. So I didn't really like that very much and did feel very forced. But that's my one complaint, because otherwise this book was amazing. And yeah, I feel like it would have made the story flow a little bit better if there was that emotional connection instead of it just being like physical attraction and trauma bonding. But I don't know how she would have done that, because it's like I need to give you more context about the story. So basically, in this world, you rack up debt towards the government, and when you hit a certain point, there's this thing called the gauntlet. And the gauntlet is where either you, the person who's racked up the debt, or someone that you sacrifice for the gauntlet gets hunted and killed by these things called angels. And they are these people that are basically like modded people, so that they're like half robot, half human, and they can kill very efficiently. And yeah, you can see the Hunger Games vibes in that. But it was just very interesting, and I really liked the idea. But what happens is our main girl, her mom racks up debt, doesn't tell her kids until she submits her daughter for the gauntlet. And it's just very, very, very sad to read. But I really did like this book. It's just the romance could have been better. That's all. That's my only complaint. I do recommend you read this book, because this is Ava Reed's best book, I think, that she's written so far. But yeah, let's get into the spooky season Dark Academia vibes. So I have 3 categories for these. We got fantasy, historical fiction, and horror. We're gonna start with fantasy. We're actually gonna start with Ninth House. So I finally read Ninth House, which, if you don't know, Leigh Bardugo is one of my favorite authors, but I've only ever read her Shadow and Bone books, and I haven't even finished all of those yet. I hope to do that soon, maybe next year. But this duology is officially my favorite from Leigh Bardugo. Originally it was Six of Crows, now it is Ninth House. I really, really love this. It is Dark Academia, it is magic, it is set in Yale, and it's just fun. So basically, Yale has secret societies. It's a real thing in real life. But in this parallel universe that Leigh creates, there are there's 8 houses that use magic and like necromancy kind of magic a little bit. And things go wrong. So back in the day, there was created a 9th house to watch over these other houses to make sure their magic doesn't get out of whack. And what happens is our main girl, she can see ghosts. And she gets asked to come and be part of this 9th house and go to school at Yale. And basically her ride's completely covered, tuition, housing, everything. And because they're like, we need this girl, because the ghosts try and interrupt these magical ceremonies and stuff. So they need someone who can protect and help with stuff like that. And so things start going horribly wrong, and it is a whole mess that has to be fixed. And there's a lot of gruesome bits and I just, yeah, I loved it. The vibes were immaculate. I love our morally gray main character. She was amazing. Um, but like, it's just really, really, really fun. Um, what was I gonna say? I forgot. Um, but yeah, this is my favorite series or duology by Leigh Bardugo. Um, it was just really creative and it keeps you on your toes, and like she gives you enough world building at the beginning to like hook you in and get you connected, but then there's stuff that you don't find out until the second book, and you're just like, hold up, wait, let's go back. And it was just very creative, very fun. I love it. Yeah. Um, my favorite Leigh Bardugo books so far. The second fantasy book, well, technically third because Ninth House is a duology. The next fantasy book that I read was Immortal Dark by Tygus Girma. Now, this is a fairly new book. This is a new release. It is a vampire novel. It is a POC. POC, I think is the right term. POC vampire novel, which was so creative, and the author like intertwines a lot of like African mythology and like history into it, and I just thought that was really interesting and cool, and I really liked that. But like, this is one of the best books that I've read this year. It is. The world building, the character, the prose, everything is perfect. I really love the dynamic between Círdan and Sueños. It's very dark. It's very bloody. It's very, very good, like banter. It gives the same vibes as Jude and Cardan from The Cruel Prince. It is not the same book as The Cruel Prince. A lot of people comparing it to The Cruel Prince. The vibes between Círdan and Sueños is the same or similar, but the book itself is not like The Cruel Prince at all. But yeah, this is the kind of enemies to lovers that I need in my life. I normally don't like romances that much. I'm starting to like it more, but oh, Jude and Cardan. Also, if you like Evangeline Fox and Jax from Once Upon a Broken Heart, also similar vibes, and I love it. My one complaint. Oh wait, before I should give you my one complaint, I should tell you more about the book. Then I'll tell you. Basically, there is this secret university that trains people to be familiars with vampires. And the vampires are in an agreement with the humans that run this place that if they can drink from their family, then they won't drink from anyone else. And so the humans, when they're an heir to their house, they have to go to this university and learn how to run their house and have good relations with vampires and keep the peace and everything. And our main girl was stolen away from home years ago, and she basically just hates vampires. She thinks that they stole her sister and kidnapped her, and it's just a whole mess. And so she basically hates everyone at this place, but she goes anyways because she finds out that if she doesn't go to university, she doesn't become master of her house, that the house vampire will inherit it. So she is like, I can't let this happen. And there are parts of it that are confusing, but this is a trilogy, so I feel like that will be cleared up in the rest, and I'm very excited for the rest of this book. My one complaint: this is a YA book. The content is not YA. Like I said, the romance between Círdan and Sueños is very dark and bloody, and it also is kind of sensual. There isn't any sex scenes or anything, but I do feel like it goes too far for a YA book. This should be an adult. And I know that that's a big thing on Bookstagram, Book Talk right now, of like, what is too much for a YA book. And I do think that that's kind of subjective, but I would say should be an adult book. But I did really love it. I am very excited for the next two books. Next books come out next year and the year after, which I really like when authors are like that. They worked ahead so that they can release pretty quickly the next two books in this next books in the series. And I think it's so insane that this author's debut novel, because she should have been published before because her writing is so great. But yeah, I really love that book. Let's get into historical fiction. I read two more books by E.S. Thompson, which, again, E.S. Thompson is one of my favorite authors. I read a lot of my favorite authors this time around, the past couple of months. But I love E.S. Thompson. She writes this series called the Jim Flockhart series, and it's about this woman who disguises herself as a man so that she can be an apothecary and also a, like, what's the word? Oh, I can't, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. She's a detective, but she's not trained to be a detective. And it's just, I love how her books read like Poirot or a Sherlock mystery, and it just makes me very happy, and I love reading them. Dark Asylum was definitely one of my favorites that I've read. There is a murder, of course, at the local asylum in Victorian London, and Jim has to go and figure stuff out. But I love how it's very creepy. You don't find out until the very end when it's explained, like a quarter of the way, 3/4 of the way through. There's always a scene in her books where Jim's like, I think I know what happened, but I need a little more information just to make sure before I say something. And I love that. I love that she's a detective that's like, I'm going to not accuse someone until I'm absolutely sure that this is the person that did it. I didn't feel like the ending was very satisfying in this one. Sometimes Thompson complicates the endings a little too much for me. But I do really, really like her books, no matter what. But this one was just a little bit. And then the other one that I read was The Blood. This one is not as good. There is a floating hospital on a boat, and it's very icky and gross, and just kind of, ugh. I just could not get into it. The person commits suicide, but Jim finds that it's actually probably murder. I couldn't get into it. It's my least favorite book from the series. But all the other ones that I have loved. There are two more that I need to read from this series. And then I will be done. But on to the next books. So I found a book a while ago on Kindle that I wanted to read. That was just kind of sounded interesting. It's called Regrettably, I Am About to Cause Trouble by Amy McNee. So this is set during the time of Henry VIII, which that obviously makes things interesting. It is about this girl who she has a like birthmark on her thigh, and people think that because she has this birthmark that means she's a witch, of course. And she marries this dude, but then on their wedding night he sees the mark. He's like, you are a witch, you are horrible, I don't want anything to do with you, I want a divorce. Because thanks to Henry VIII, divorce is possible. And she's like, no. I'm supposed to be a wife. That is my whole purpose in life. Like, that's my only thing. I'm gonna be a wife and have sons, and that's my thing. And she's like, all about this. And also, our main character, she's very prideful. Very, very prideful. So she runs away from home because she does not want to be put in the situation that her parents decide is the best place for her in this whole mess. And she's like, no, I'm gonna do things my way because your way is stupid. And it was stupid, but she ran away from home, and she goes to stay with these two witches. And like, they're really just herb witches. They do potions and things and help people with stuff, and like, it's very like not real magic. but like the whole time you're questioning whether it's real magic because our narrator is unreliable, which I really liked. But I have a couple complaints of this. This was a 3-star book because the story was interesting, but the writing was kind of specifically with characters. There's a lot of character growth with the main character, but the other characters are very static. They don't really change much, which I really didn't like, because when I'm reading a book, I want to see character growth in not just our main character, which is the most important, but our other characters as well. I also felt like, even though it is considered an adult book, it is written as a middle grade book. The writing style is very middle grade, and it was just kind of unsatisfying to read, and I wish I hadn't paid. I only paid a couple dollars, but I wish I hadn't paid for this book, just because it was just kind of like meh. Would not recommend, but yeah. Next book. We have 3 more books left, and then we're through. The next fantasy book I read was Babel by R.F. Kuang. As you can see, the Dark Academia vibes are vibing. Now, this is one of my best friend's favorite books. And she's a polyglot. She loves linguistics. And I was there when she read this book and she was obsessed with it. I was not, which I feel sad about, because she bought me the book and was like, "You're gonna love this," and then it's okay. I feel like this is a very niche kind of book. If you are into linguistics, if you are into that sort of thing, stories about racism, colonialism, that sort of thing, you will enjoy this book. But it is very niche, and I'm not very good at languages, and they interest me, but not enough to read a whole book about it. So I would definitely struggle to read through this book. It was also kind of slow. The pacing was a struggle to deal with. The story was not very engaging in the first half. It did get a little better in the second half. Things picked up, but that first half was very, very difficult to get through. I had to force myself to read it. I did give it a 3.5 stars because it was a good story. It just was not engaging and was not interesting for me, but I feel like it will be for other people who are more invested in those topics that it discusses. I did really like how much R.F. Kuang researched Victorian London. Like, this is a parallel Victorian London. There is magic, but it is very true to history, and I love that. I love when books are like that, especially if they are parallel reality, if they are well researched. I like that a lot. And the struggles of our main character is half Chinese, and the struggles that he faces living in a society that looks down on foreigners is also very true to history. And I thought it was the actual like world building was very well done. The narration style was also a little weird, because in the first chapter it's an all-knowing narrator, but then the rest of it is from our main guy's POV, except for there's a couple interludes with other characters, and it was just weird, and it was just odd, and I didn't really like it. Yeah, so I didn't really like this book, but I think that it could be very interesting for certain people. If you are into linguistics, I would recommend this book because I think you would enjoy it. Linguistics and Dark Academia. If you are into those two things, you will probably like this book. It was not for me, and that's okay. It was from my best friend. That's okay. I'm glad that she liked it and enjoyed it, even if I did. It feels so bad to say. This is such a mix of books in this video of like, oh, I absolutely love this. This is one of the best books I read, and then meh. But yeah, next 2 books are horror, so we're gonna end on that. I read a book. I saw this on an Instagram video. was like, Halloween books you need to read. And this one is called Halloween Fiend by C.V. Hunt. And this is a novella. Yes. I like a good horror novel. I'm not, like, I don't read a lot. Oh, excuse me. I do not read a lot of horror. But I do enjoy it when I find a good book. I did spend about 15 minutes in the horror section of Barnes & Noble yesterday because I really wanted to read more horror, because I started getting into the vibe, and the vibe is vibing, and I need more horror right now. But this book was very creepy. It's very dark. So basically, there's this town. It sounds like it's in New England, where there is this monster that haunts the town, and he's called Halloween. And he demands sacrifices, or he's going to torture the townspeople. So every night, every home has to put out a living sacrifice, an animal or pet or something. One of the main character's neighbors has cats. He uses hamsters, and puts them out in a cage as a sacrifice to Halloween, so he doesn't kill them all. And on Halloween night, on Hallows Eve, he demands an even bigger sacrifice, which doesn't get, you kind of get it, but it's not like fully revealed until like halfway through the book. So I'm not gonna spoil it. But I really, really like this book because it really delves into like, let's make you as uncomfortable as possible kind of horror. Because you don't like any of the townspeople. None of them. They're all awful, some more than others, but they are all awful. Yeah, they're just awful people. And I wonder if it's like because they've lived in such a torturous place. But all the characters are unlikable. So if you can't handle that, don't read this book. But it is very creepy. It's meant to make you very uncomfortable. And I'm not sure how much to like give away. I'm not gonna give away anymore. But if you like uncomfortable horror and you like novellas, this is a really good book. The ending was, I was not expecting it, and it made me very happy. I really liked it. It felt perfect, and I loved it. It was not a happy ending, but it was perfect for this book, and I loved it. One more book. The last book that I read in October was another T. Kingfisher book. But if you know T. Kingfisher, you know that she writes horror and she writes fairy tales. And this is horror. I read The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. So this is a very good, creepy story. So our main character, she's going through a divorce with her husband, and her uncle runs this little curiosity museum shop thing, and he offers her a place to stay and help him run the store. So she goes, and her uncle's having a lot of like health problems, and so he ends up having to have knee surgery or hip surgery or something like that, and she's left alone running the shop. And one day she goes upstairs and finds a hole in the wall. She goes to get this like guy from next door who runs the coffee shop to come and help her fix it, and they find a tunnel that should not be there because it physically could not fit in the space. They find a tunnel behind the wall, and the tunnel leads to another universe, a very, very creepy universe with sentient trees and monsters that want to eat you and your universe. I loved this book so much. Okay. This was yet another like, let's make you as uncomfortable as possible along with the characters. I really like the characters though. The two main characters are very likable and like relatable characters. And also I love how T. Kingfisher breaks like the fourth wall, and it's just like, she's like, it's not like we're in a horror movie, you're in a horror book, it's the same thing. So it just is, T. Kingfisher always knows how to write a very good story where you can easily place yourself in it. And yeah, it was really good. And if you like horror, this is a good book to read. Also, it is set in North Carolina, I think. So it is Southern horror. Yeah. And there's obviously little things that, since I live in the South, like, we're very just like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it's in North Carolina. So yeah, I really like this book. I love T. Kingfisher. She's amazing. I genuinely don't know how long this video is, but I know it's probably like at least 30-40 minutes long. We'll see when I edit it and put all these videos together. But those are all the books that I read in September and October. Now that we are moved, we're still unpacking, but now that we're moved, hopefully I will be able to do a little better with my videos, and hopefully I'll get the lighting figured out. We'll see. Once we have curtains up and everything, we're working on all of that. But yeah, I am very excited about this month because I'm already reading some really great books, and I can't wait to talk about them next month. And also, Christmas is coming soon. I'm so excited. But it's not time to put up decorations yet. I need to calm down, and I need to wait until after Thanksgiving, and then I can put up all the decorations. We probably would have put them up at the beginning of November, but we're moving. We moved, so that's not a priority right now. But I'm very excited. I am very grateful for our new house. That's all I can talk about right now to anyone. But yeah, thanks for joining me. I will see you in the next video. Bye!